The first time I caught Jake's cologne clinging to her perfume, I brushed it off. Maybe it was a remnant from one of those family dinners she always insisted we host. Amy loved the idea of family, of unity, and I loved her enough to humor it, even when it meant opening my home to the man who had always taken more than his share. But then, there were the stolen glances, the laughter that seemed meant only for him, and the unspoken words that passed between them like a secret handshake. Betrayal doesn't come knocking. It creeps in through the cracks, silent and insidious, until you're drowning in it before you even realize it's there. Jake was the golden boy of our family. Growing up, he had this effortless charm, a crooked grin that could disarm even the sternest of adults, and an uncanny knack for making everyone feel like they were the center of his world. It was a facade, of course, but a convincing one. Our parents adored him. They celebrated his smallest achievements, a goal in a school soccer game, a passable grade on a test like he'd discovered the cure for cancer. Meanwhile, my successes were treated as routine. I was the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who did his homework without being asked, who cleaned his room without complaint, who existed in the shadows while Jake basked in the spotlight. By the time I left for college, I thought I'd outgrown the bitterness of always being second best. I built a life I could be proud of, free from the shadow of my family's favoritism. I landed a stable career in finance, the kind that turned heads at reunions and made people ask for stock tips at parties. When I met Amy, it felt like the universe had finally balanced the scales. She was everything I wasn't: vibrant, empathetic, effortlessly magnetic. She drew people in with her warmth, but it was her unwavering support that made me fall for her. We married 3 years later, and for a while, life felt perfect. Jake re entered my life the way he always did, uninvited and unrepentant. After a spectacular failure in California, where he'd been chasing dreams of fame and fortune, he came back with little more than a battered duffel bag and a list of excuses. "He's your brother," Amy had said, her voice full of that infuriating kindness that I couldn't help but admire. Everyone deserves a second chance. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let him stay with us until he got back on his feet. He didn't just take the offered inch, he took the whole damn mile. The signs were there, in hindsight. The way Amy laughed just a little too hard at his jokes, the way Jake's gaze lingered on her a little too long. But I ignored them, convinced that I was imagining things, that my insecurities were getting the better of me. It wasn't until I came home early from work one day that the truth slapped me in the face. I heard their laughter before I saw them, an easy, intimate sound that made my stomach twist. Walking into the living room, I found them sitting too close on the couch, their faces flushed. It wasn't just the scene, it was the way they looked at me, caught and unapologetic. When I confronted them, they didn't even bother denying it. The betrayal felt like a physical blow, knocking the air out of my lungs. But the worst was yet to come. A week later, Amy dropped the bombshell. She was pregnant, and the baby wasn't mine. I filed for divorce the very next day. As if the betrayal wasn't devastating enough, my parents, true to form, sided with Jake. "He's your brother," they said, as though that absolved him of all wrongdoing. Family forgives. But forgiveness wasn't in my vocabulary anymore. They didn't just expect me to forgive him, they expected me to support him. Financially, emotionally, as though his mistakes were somehow my responsibility. When the calls and messages escalated into threats of lawsuits for financial support, I fought back. In court, their lies crumbled. The judge dismissed the case and even reduced the alimony I owed Amy. It was a small but significant victory in a war that had left me battered and bruised. The weight of it all, the betrayal, the family politics, the endless guilt tripping, became unbearable. I made the hardest decision of my life. I cut ties. Completely. No more phone calls, no more family dinners, no more toxic reminders of a past I no longer wanted to be part of. I sold my condo, packed up my life, and accepted a job in Seattle. Seattle was a revelation. Far from the ghosts of my past, I found peace. Therapy became a lifeline, helping me untangle the mess of emotions I'd buried for years. I built a new circle of friends, people who valued me not for what I could provide, but for who I was. Slowly, I began to heal. Jake and Amy, from what I've heard, haven't fared as well. Their lives, built on a foundation of lies and betrayal, have crumbled. My parents have reached out a few times, their messages laced with guilt and regret, but I've chosen not to respond. Today, I wake up to a life that feels entirely mine. The pain of the past no longer defines me. I've learned that family isn't about shared blood, but shared values, trust, respect, and care. For the first time, I am no one's second choice, no one's afterthought. I am free, and that more than anything is my greatest triumph.